Hello and welcome to today's yoga practice. I'm Darcy Clark, and today's practice is going to be all a reclined practice that is great for loosening up the lower body, primarily lower back, pelvis, hips, lumbar spine, a little bit as well through the knees and ankles. So, a nice way to limber up some tightness in the lower back, or if you happen to have arthritis in that part of your spine, lower back, sacrum area, or discomfort in the hips, and then this is a great practice for you. Nice and gentle. It can be done on the floor, it could be done using a yoga mat or without a yoga mat. You don't necessarily need a yoga mat. You just need to be able to feel comfortable resting on your back. So you could also do this if getting to the floor is uncomfortable or impossible, then feel free to do this practice from your bed as well. Okay, so those are all great options. If you don't have a yoga mat, but you want some extra padding, to stay comfortable on the floor, just put a blanket down on the ground or a towel, something like that, to help give you a little bit more of that padding. Okay. Other props that might be handy today to have close by. So pillows I find always come in handy. So having one or two pillows close by is a great thing to do. In addition to a couple pillows and or folded blankets, then I would suggest having a belt or a long scarf that you can use. If holding on to or catching your knee when you're on your back feels kind of far away, you can use the belt instead. And I'll show you exactly how to use those props today. Okay, so let's start our practice. Coming down to the floor or the back on the bed, wherever you happen to be. And so, finding your own way to get down. And we're going to start resting on the back. So this is where, having a bit of a pillow under the head might be more comfortable for you than having your head on the same level as the rest of your spine. So if you need a bit of a pillow under your head, feel free to have that. But I think we're going to start out with our knees bent and the feet flat on the floor. So find that position for yourself. So take your time to get down on the back and get comfortable. Where do your feet want to land? They could be further forward from your knees. They could be further back. What feels most comfortable for you? I encourage you throughout your practice today to really tune in to what is feeling good in your body and trying to let yourself move in ranges of movement that feel good for you, okay? Rather than doing or copying necessarily what I'm doing, I will try my best to show all the different ranges and options. But if something doesn't feel good for you, then make the movement a little smaller, tweak it a little bit, back it up, or come out of it completely, okay? Especially if you're noticing sensations that are sharp and painful. Back away and come on out to a more comfortable position. All right, so now that you've settled and relaxed here, where do your arms want to land? So you could have your hands resting on your body. You could have your arms relaxing maybe a little bit away from your sides. What position in your arms lets you soften more through your shoulders? Relax any unnecessary tension here in your hands and your fingers. Letting your eyes close if that's comfortable for you, or just simply softening your gaze as you keep the eyes open. So let's take a few moments and start to tune in to the movements of the breath. So as we rest here, can you notice the nature of your breath as it is right now? Let yourself become aware of the inhale. Feel the breath as it flows into your body. And be aware of the exhale. Can you feel the breath as it leaves your body? Not necessarily trying to make the breath anything different. No need to change it. Let's just simply notice it first. Become conscious and aware of the inhale flowing in and the exhale flowing out. So there are several different ways we can feel the breath, right? We might sense the movement of the air flowing in and out through the nose. Feeling the subtle sensations of breath moving in through the nostrils and moving out through the nostrils. And then you might also sense how the breath moves your belly. So can you feel your belly relax? Can you let go of any sense of holding in of the belly? This is a common area of tension for many of us. So are you holding on the belly? And is there a way for you to encourage a little more softness here? It's important to let the belly relax. And the belly can let go of any holding so that you can start to feel how your belly moves as you inhale. And feel how your belly moves as you exhale. You're not trying to make the belly move. You're just noticing however much or however little your belly moves as you breathe. And of course, you might also sense movements in and around your ribs and your chest. With each inhale, your lungs fill, your chest may rise, your ribs may expand. And with each exhale, as you let go of the breath, your lungs slowly empty, and you may feel your chest resting or settling, your ribs narrowing as your lungs empty. So now let's go ahead and place our hands. If you can, comfortably place one hand on either side of, I'd say, your upper belly or lower ribs area. So try to keep the fingers separate, so hands separate rather than interlaced. And just gently open your palms, lay the hands on your low ribs, upper belly. And try to stay as relaxed as you can through your shoulders, through your upper arms. And now getting a little more of this sensory feedback. With our hands here, can you sense how the breath moves a little better? So again, try to let the breath be as effortless as possible while you feel these movements through your hands with each breath in and with each breath out. So you might notice as you breathe in, your belly and your ribs expand and rise up into your hands a little more. And with each exhale, you can feel how your belly and your ribs kind of sink and settle, and maybe even draw back in a little further. So you're looking to feel how the breath moves your body and letting the breath move your body. So we're starting to soften to the movements of each breath so that your breath can deepen and slow down. As you deepen and slow down your breath, it helps to relax your body. So you might feel layers of tension that you didn't even know were there start to soften and relax more. All right. So now we're going to start to bring a little bit of movement, doing pelvic tilts with the breath. Okay? So take your hands a little lower now. So resting your hands not so much on your lower ribs, but further down, maybe on either side of your navel, somewhere like that. Again, keeping your hands separate, shoulders resting, head relaxed in the center. If you have quite a bit of a pillow under the head, you might try to make it a little thinner at this point, or if you can, bring your head straight back onto the same surface as the rest of your body. Try that out. But do what you need to do to keep your neck comfortable if you need that little bit of a pillow. So as we inhale, can we feel how the belly gently expands into our hands? Breath moves in and down as we inhale. That's it. And as you exhale, can you feel how your belly settles and sinks back in a little bit? We're not pulling it in. We're just letting go of the breath. So as we exhale, belly rests back in and breath moves out through the nose. So try your best to stay with that breath moving in and out through the nose. As you begin to let the pelvis start to tip forward on the inhale, so that means your tailbone's going to point down, your lower back is going to arch further away from the floor. Belly expands with that movement. As you exhale, feel the belly gently hugging in and up, flattening more into the back of your waist. So you're rolling back and letting your tailbone curl up very slightly. So each inhale, let the belly expand, let the pelvis tip down to the tailbone, lower back arching comfortably. And with each exhale, feel your lower back slowly flattening as you're letting go of all the breath. So I like to think of this movement, keep it going to the pace of your own breath, as a rolling point of contact, that we're rolling down towards the tailbone as you inhale, and then you're rolling it back towards the back of your waist as you exhale. Feel the belly relax with your inhale as you tip down to the tailbone, and then gently feel the belly hugging in and up to help flatten into the back waist. So you're finding a little bit of belly support with the exhale. But just as important is to let the belly fully relax on the inhale so the tailbone curls down again. Tipping the pelvis forward on the inhale, tailbone points down, lower back arches. Tipping the pelvis back on the exhale to help flatten as best you can, back waist into the ground. So you'll start to feel how this movement gets you in tune with the rhythm of your own breath because you're following that flow. And you're letting the belly relax with each inhale to expand and bring breath in. And then finding a little bit of support through the belly as you hug in and up with the exhale to help flatten into your back waist. So this movement starts to mobilize and loosen up through both our hip joints, where our thigh bones sit into the pelvis, and also our vertebrae, especially our lumbar spine into the back of the waist. But if you stay nice and relaxed through the shoulders and through the neck here too, you might start to feel how this movement travels through the rest of your spine as well. Moves like a wave, changing the curves of your spine, feeling those relationships with the floor through your whole back. Change tiny bit with each inhale and with each exhale. Okay. So we've just been moving our pelvis forward and back, finding the range that feels comfortable with your body. And then let's try to find the center point where we're neither tipped forward all the way to the tailbone, nor are we flattening into the back of the waist, but it's somewhere between those 2 points. So trying to find that happy medium space where we're landing into the back of our pelvis, which is also the sacrum, the very base of our spine. And so as we try our best to stay as centered in the back of our pelvis as we can, let's find our pelvic bones. Bring your fingertips to rest on the pelvic bones. So they can be found a couple fingers if you take your fingers just below your navel, 2 or 3 fingers below your navel. You go out from there and you will find your pelvic bones. So these is part of the pelvis. And then if you let your fingertips stay on your pelvic bones and bring your thumbs onto the lower ribs, we're going to try to keep this relationship as it is between ribs and pelvis. So we're going to minimize the movement on our pelvis and on our ribs and through our waist while we try bringing one foot off the floor at a time. So feel your inhale, let the belly expand a bit. And as you exhale, push a little more into your left foot. Slowly lift your right foot and bring your knee in, just as far as that hip takes you. Then as you inhale, slowly lower that right foot back to the floor, pressing a little more weight into it so that you can slowly lift your left foot, knee comes in. So as you keep this slow march going to the rhythm of your own breath here, see if you can notice where the shifts are happening in your back. So if there's a lot of rolling sort of across the back of your pelvis, can you minimize that as best you can? Maybe you need to slow things down a little more. And a lot of this is just practice too. So if this is new to you, you might be feeling a little wobbly. This is perfectly good. As you keep going with the practice, you'll get a little more stable, more core stability to keep you in that stable, centered space. All right. And then one more on each side. Maybe checking in with your shoulders. Could they relax a little more? Could the neck and the jaw soften as you do this slow march on each leg? All right, and then bring both feet back to the floor. And let's go ahead and hug the right knee in. So you can do this holding on to the leg, around the shin or the knee, or even behind the knee. Or if getting hold of the knee doesn't, feels kind of far away for you, you can take the belt or your scarf, whatever you've got, around the back of that thigh to hold on to it instead, okay? So I encourage you to use the belt, especially if you notice, that your shoulders are shrugging or that your chin is lifting in order for you to hold on to the knee. So bringing the belt or scarf around the back of the knee is really going to help you do that with less tension in the shoulders and a lot more ease through the neck. So here, you can feel as you inhale, can you come back to sense your belly expanding, your lungs filling? And as you exhale, can you sense your belly sort of settling and sinking back in a bit as your lungs empty? And so with that movement of the breath, can you let a little movement come into that right hip so that with each inhale, your knee moves forward, and each exhale, your knee might come in a bit closer. So basically, each inhale, you're easing up on the stretch, moving the knee slightly away from you. And then each exhale, as you're finding and hugging in and up through the belly, that support, your knee might come in a bit closer with as little tension in the shoulders as possible. That's it. You also have the option, if you want to see how it feels, to straighten your left leg along the ground with this movement. And that's going to do a few different things. It's going to stretch a little more into the front of your left hip. You might feel some space there. But it might also bring a bit of discomfort into your low back. So if that's happening for you, if you notice your low back arching a lot away from the floor, then just bring your foot back to the ground and keep the movement happening one more time through that right knee. Breathing in, easing away. Exhaling, bringing it in towards you a bit more. Yeah. So now we can start to circle this knee. So whether you've got hold of your knee with just your hand, maybe the right hand staying on that knee, or holding on to the ends of your belt or scarf in your right hand, and start to draw a bit of a circle with your knee. So this way we start to move into our hip. So as we draw this circle with your knee, see if you can just notice the range that feels good to move through. And as you move through this circle, is there a lot of rocking on your back, on your pelvis, right? So if there's a lot of shifting from side to side with the circle, as I'm sort of showing you here, see if you can minimize that shifting across the back of your pelvis in order to find more of the movement more purely from your hip. That's it. So where we're trying to feel the movement from is into that hip socket where the thigh bone sits into the pelvis. Okay. And this can be any range. This could be quite small. It could be as large as feels comfortable while keeping the pelvis level or stable. So then go circling the other way. Now this second direction might feel quite different, and it might need some different, ranges, different tempo. Feel your breath as you feel these movements through the hip. Feel the inhale and feel the exhale. Continuing to scan your body for any unnecessary tension, especially into shoulders, neck, jaw. Okay. And then we're going to slowly let that right foot come back to the ground. And I'd say bring both feet back to the floor if you've got that left leg straight. And then let's see about checking in by hugging in both knees. So as we hug in both knees, knees can stay wider, that's it, or stay together, your choice. Okay, holding on with your hands or your belt. And this one gives you a little more space into that lower back. So feel free to find a gentle rock with this. So let's allow for a little tipping on the back of the pelvis, a little to the right and a little to the left. And just keeping that movement happening as a nice massage starts to come into your lower back. Okay, nice. And then let's try that out on the other side. So start with both feet back on the floor. And in fact, you might revisit a couple pelvic tilts with this, finding your inhale, tipping your pelvis down to your tailbone, lower back arching, belly expanding. And then with your exhale, feeling your lower back flatten again, tailbone curling away slightly. And then after a few of those, can you find that middle ground again? Find that center place through the back of your pelvis. And then let's bring the left knee in. So holding on to the knee or behind the thigh or using the belt, feel free to just feel your breath here. With each inhale, the breath moves in and down. So as you breathe in, let your belly soften and expand to allow for this knee to come away from you, easing away from the stretch. And then it's as you exhale, you might bring the knee in a bit closer. But you're just finding and exploring that nice and easy range. And again, it's your choice if you want to straighten out that right leg, and you'll find a little more space through the front of that right hip. You can be here or bend the knee and bring that foot back to the floor if that's more comfortable for you at any time. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate this side with my right leg staying straight. And one more breath with this, easing up on the inhale. Exhaling to bring the knee in a bit closer. Okay, so now let's start to circle into the left hip. So you can keep hold of the knee with just the left hand, guiding the circles, or bring again the belt around the back of that thigh to use the belt to hold on to. Okay. And how does this hip move? Each hip is very different, right? We use each leg very differently, in our daily movement patterns and habits. One leg tends to be a little stronger than the other leg. And all of that has an impact on the muscles in our hips, in our thighs, all the way up into our lower back. So usually one side feels maybe a little tighter than the other side. One side might move a little more easily than the other side. So just checking in with the range and size of movement that feels good through this hip. Okay, and then let's circle it in the opposite direction now. And remember that we're trying to keep the back of the pelvis from shifting around. So minimizing that, rolling across the back pelvis just as much as you can in order to feel more of the movement coming into the hip itself. That's it. So letting the foot stay quiet. Sometimes when we encounter limited range in the hip, what happens is the foot starts to draw the circle instead. So just notice that. See if you can keep it like the knee is drawing the circle. Great. Okay, and then release that foot to the floor. Bring the other foot to the floor again. And once more, let's hug both knees in. Yeah, and we might notice a change in the hips and the lower back. Okay, so now let's bring both feet back to the floor, and we're going to find, I think, a little bit of movement through one leg at a time. So let's start out by straightening the left leg along the floor with that right foot staying on the ground. And begin to let the right knee fall out to the right, and then come back up through center and across a little to the left. So as we do this movement, you can let the arms come maybe out more like a T shape, palms to the sky. Right foot is pretty much staying on the floor. You might have to bring it, change where it is, bring it a little further out to the right or a little further forward. What feels good for you as you let your knee fall out to the right and fall in to the left. So with this movement, let's start to coordinate, letting the head roll in the opposite direction of our knee. So as the knee rolls out to the right, let the head roll to the left. As the knee comes and rolls to the left, let the head roll to the right. Okay, so coordinate that. And of course, you're finding your own range. That feels good to move through that right hip. So it could be a small little tick-tock of the knee slightly to the right and slightly to the left. You could be letting that knee almost fall all the way to the floor, out to the right, and then across as far as you can to the left. So, checking in with what range feels good to move through. All right, and then come back up through center and let's switch. Straighten out the right leg, have your left foot on the floor. I often find with this one, just, it takes a bit of time to find that optimum position for your left foot. I usually like to bring it out a little to the left and a little forward. And then how does this hip move? As the knee comes out to the left and goes across to the right, just check in. What range of movement feels good? And can you find your breath as you feel this movement? So maybe you're inhaling as the knee moves out to the side and exhaling as the knee comes across the center more to the right. Good, and then once you get that movement happening, let the head start to roll opposite to that knee. Can you feel the breath breathing in and breathing out? Feeling the weight rolling as well on your foot. You can feel yourself rolling more towards outer edge, baby toe side as the knee falls out, and then rolling more towards the inner edge of the foot as the knee falls in. All right, and then coming back up through center and bringing both feet to the floor. So let's put that movement together with both legs. So we're going to start with the feet on the ground, knees bent, and walk the feet wider apart for this one. So you want to have your feet at least shoulder distance apart, something like that. And of course, you can decide for yourself if you're going a little wider or keeping it a little narrower. So let's rest the arms out like a T shape again. Soften through the elbows. Let the palms face up so that you're not gripping with the hands on the floor. Okay? So try to relax your shoulders, soften out into the elbows, and let the hands and fingers relax. So with your feet wide on your mat, you're just going to let your knees do a little tick-tock together over to the right, up through center, and over to the left. So what I like to do with this is start small. Start with just a small amount of movement. A little right of center, back through center, and then a little left of center. And so here we're allowing our pelvis to move. We are noticing as our knees fall to one side, the opposite hip is going to start to lift away from the ground. And so the more the knees fall closer to the floor, the more the opposite hip will lift. So feel and find the ranges that feel good for you. So I've gone into my full range here, letting my knees fall as much to one side as they do in order to feel the opposite hip lift. And yeah, we can start to coordinate this movement with the head as well. Gently rolling your head in the opposite direction of your knees. So as your feet are staying on the floor, you're letting the weight sort of roll on inner and outer edge of feet. That's it, back over to the other side. So again, coordinate this with your breath. You might feel yourself inhaling through center and exhaling over to the other side. This becomes a nice massage as well across the back as it mobilizes into your hips and gives you a little bit of movement into the spine through some gentle twisting. So now let's let the knees fall to the right, just as far as they go. Now, if you notice that letting this right knee fall out gives you discomfort around that hip, this is where a pillow may come in handy, where you might place your pillow or your blanket, whatever you've got, underneath that knee for it to rest on something. If it doesn't quite get all the way to the floor, that may be more comfortable. So that's one option. So let the head relax to the left. Let that left shoulder settle towards the floor as your knees are resting to the right just as far as they go. Sense a little bit of space, right? Where is this space coming into your body? Maybe through your front left thigh, front left hip, maybe through the side of your waist. And you could send a little more space through that left side by letting your left arm stretch back on a diagonal, sort of towards the back left corner of your room, as you're feeling your left knee stretch towards kind of the other corner of your room. That's it. So feel that space and length between left hand through left side, ribs and waist, following it through that left hip, left thigh, out to the knee. And let's breathe here. Feel how the inhale expands a little more into that left side. And then as you exhale, you might feel how the left side can kind of relax and rest a bit closer to the ground. It's still going to be away from the floor. You're just letting it soften a little more with gravity with each exhale. Okay, and then slowly you can let that left arm come down again to about shoulder height, head to center, knees to center. And just before we take it to the other side, just take a moment in the middle. Take a moment in the middle and shift and adjust to feel comfortable again. You know, if any other movement is calling you, like you want to hug your knees in, bring you more space into your low back, go for it, or any other movement. Just find it for yourself. And feel a full breath here. Let the belly soften and expand with your inhale. And feel the belly gently drawing in and up, sinking and settling as you exhale. Okay, taking the arms, letting them still rest out like a T shape, soft and relaxed through the hands and fingers. Let's bring the feet a little wider again. Okay, on the floor. And now let the knees fall as far to the left as feels comfortable. So your left leg is falling out and your right leg is kind of falling in. So inner knee on that right leg is moving towards the ground. Outer knee of your left leg is moving towards the floor. Now again, this side could feel different. So just because you didn't need support on the one side doesn't mean you might not appreciate it on this side. So feel free to have that pillow, folded blanket, whatever you happen to have under that left thigh to be here more comfortably. If you notice some catching happening in your hip, that's a great option. So yeah, let's relax the head to the right and just get a sense of how this right side is feeling this stretch. You might notice different areas of your body on this right side getting a greater stretch compared to the other side. And then feeling free to send that right arm to stretch more towards the back right corner of your room. So lifting it up and stretching it back, but trying to keep that right shoulder as close to the floor as it can stay, while you sense all that space from your right hand down to your right knee through that whole side of your body, and allowing the breath to move into that space with each inhale. What expands and rises a little more, and with each exhale, what softens and settles with gravity a little more. So even though I'm finding a gentle reach through this right arm, it's not stiff. Trying to soften through those joints, trying to keep as little tension as possible through that right shoulder, right side of the neck for another breath here. Okay. And then bringing your head back to center, arm out, more at shoulder height to bring the knees back up. Yeah, you might walk the feet in a bit. And again, get comfortable and do any other little movement your body's calling for. A hug of the knees might be nice, a little gentle rock side to side, or simply keeping your feet on the floor and just revisiting a little bit of a smaller windshield wiper just to ease and massage into that lower back area. Okay. All right. So let's find a little bit more movement through each leg. And these movements both mobilize the hip, the knee, and the ankle, and even the toes a little bit. But as we mobilize the one leg, we'll also find a little bit of core stability with this. So the core stability is about deep support from deep within our abdominals and our back muscles. So we will start with a couple pelvic tilts again. So feel free to rest your hands on your belly. Feel as you inhale, your belly expands as your lungs fill. You're tipping down to the tailbone. As you exhale, hugging gently in and up through the belly, trying to feel your back waist flatten towards the floor. Good. So finding that full but comfortable range of the pelvis, tipping forward and back to the rhythm of your breath. Until, again, you try to find where the center point is. So you're not tipped all the way forward, you're not tipped all the way back, somewhere in between. And this is where, again, you might place your hands. Let's just maybe place the hands this time like on front low ribs. So we're going to try to keep our front lower ribs. You can feel those bones under the chest, above the belly. And we're going to let the ribs kind of rest and sink into the body. We're going to try to keep them there while we stand into the left foot. So that means just sense the foot on the floor as you lift the right foot off the floor. So we've got our right knee bent, right foot off the ground. Now let's stretch and bend a few times through this right leg. So how much of a stretch through the leg is up to you. How are things feeling through the back of your thigh and maybe through the back of the knee? You might feel some pull. So you stretch to the angle that feels comfortable for you. As we do this, let's point and flex the foot. So push up through the heel as you stretch your leg, and then point your toes as you bend your knee again. Pushing the heel away, pulling the heel back as you point your toes. So now the movement is mostly in knee and ankle and toes. Okay. Now let's find more movement. Stretch up to that comfortable edge for you. Could be any angle at that knee. Okay. Then from here, let's point the toes and reach the leg away from the head. See if you can straighten it any further as you do that. And how far can this leg come before your low back arches? So I'm showing that right now. Lower back is arching. Or any discomfort comes into your hip. So then let the knee bend back in. Push up through the heel again. Point the toes. Lowering the leg to the point that works for you without letting yourself tip off that center point in your pelvis. Bending the knee back in. So it could be quite a small range, right? You can think of this as like a really slow bicycle movement through the one leg. Right? So I'm showing you what maybe a smaller range would look like. And the hands resting on the front ribs is a nice reminder. Okay, my ribs are not going to move. My back ribs are going to stay in contact with the ground the whole time. And if I were to lower my leg further than I can do, then you'll notice how the ribs are going to lift. You'll notice how your lower back is going to arch. So we're trying to find the way to move our leg without moving our core, without moving our waist, our ribs, our pelvis. So we've got some core stability while we move our right leg through the range that you can move it through with that core stability. Okay, and we're breathing. So important. So the next time you lower the leg, let's actually bring it all the way to the floor. And once the leg is down, you can find a way to just relax the leg. So sometimes a little bit of this gentle jiggle, wagging movement feels good. So you could try that, rolling across the back of your heel and letting your toes kind of wag side to side. And so you're letting your whole leg loosen up from the hip to the toes. You could also try a little bit of a knee bounce. So pushing into the heel, letting your knee lift and bounce, and just maybe exploring other ways that let you loosen and relax the leg. Okay? All right. And then when you're ready, bring that right foot back to the floor. Both feet are on the ground. Let's once again find a couple pelvic tilts. Let the inhale tip you forward or down to the tailbone. Feel the exhale, curl the tailbone up, flattening into that back waist again. And then find where the center point is, where your back ribs are nestled into the floor, where you're resting into the back of your pelvis without needing to flatten into your back waist, somewhere in between, okay? And then stand more weight into your right foot so you can lift your left foot, and we'll check in with how this leg stretches and bends. So push up through the heel as you stretch to a comfortable angle. Point the toes as you bend your knee to a comfortable angle, right? So this is helping to lubricate that knee joint as we also get a little movement through the ankle and maybe even through the toes too. You can involve them. Yeah, spreading the toes back as you push up through the heel and curling the toes away as you point. That's it. So if your knee does not straighten, that's fine. Don't force it. Find the movement smooth with your breath. And then we'll start to let more movement come. So stretching to that comfortable angle through your left leg, and then pointing your toes to feel like almost like someone's pulling on your leg as it's lowering towards the floor. You're trying to notice, where is the point where I lose this core stability? And just before that point, let your knee bend again and push up through the heel. So we're noticing how far this leg can come towards the ground before your lower back arches, before your back ribs lift. So hands resting on those front ribs can help you keep this connection with that core stability. I often find myself exhaling as I lower the leg and then inhaling as I stretch and press up again. The exhale helps me keep this support a little more through that core. Yeah, so we're finding that slow bicycle movement through the range that works for you on this side. This side could be different. It likely is. Can you soften into your shoulders? Stay with the breath's rhythm through one more movement here. So the next time we bring the leg down, let's bring it all the way to the floor and let the leg relax. Because this movement, you might have noticed, brings, you might notice a little bit of tension in the front of that left hip. This movement works the hip flexor a bit. So what can we do to relax the leg? We could wag the foot, rolling across the back of that heel in this nice rhythmic, loose way to help relax the length of the leg. We could also bounce the knee, pressing into that heel and finding whatever rhythm of bouncing feels good for you and your joints. All right. And then bring both feet back to the floor. Let's actually hug both knees in again. If that feels good, find a little bit of a rock with that. Okay. And then we're going to roll over onto our side. So have a couple pillows close by. You may end up wanting one right away under your head. So we're going to roll over onto the right side. So resting on your right side, you have your knees bent in front of you. So I'd say try to bring your knees up towards hip level. So rather than them being down here, bring them up just to where it's comfortable in your lower back, okay? So if it's not quite up at hip level, that's quite all right. So this is where you may want a little bit of a pillow as support under your head. And have at least one other pillow handy. In fact, I'll get one. Okay. So here we are. We're resting on our right shoulder and on our right hip. And let's start out just taking a bit of time to get comfortable. Feel where the weight lands on your right hip. And sometimes if you've got like any sort of bursa there that's feeling a little inflamed or a sensitive spot on the side of your hip, having another little blanket or extra padding underneath that bottom hip might be appreciated. So let's lift the left arm up towards the sky And if we take the arm further back to the left, that's it. Let's let the upper body start to follow. So turning the chest and the head with that left arm, just bringing it just as close to the floor as you comfortably go, and then taking the arm back up and over again onto your side. So let's explore that. Lifting the arm up, that's shoulder movement. And then if we go further, rolling sort of across our upper back towards that left shoulder. It probably won't get all the way to the floor, which is just fine. And then come back up and over to the right again. So explore that. Feel the breath along the way. Take your time. Really nice. So you can keep doing that movement that we were just doing, or if you want a little more movement to come into this shoulder, we can let the arm circle back towards beyond the head. And then as the arm continues the circle out to the left, your upper back and head follow, turning to the left, and you keep going with the arm down towards the hip, across and along the thigh, back over onto your side again. So stack your shoulders and keep it going. So with this one, I like to imagine that I'm drawing a circle around as much of the body as I can. And you'll notice what's going on in that shoulder. This gets into some of those tight muscles around the armpit and the chest really nicely. So you might notice areas within the circle where you feel a big stretch. So feel free to pause or explore that smaller range for a couple of breaths, wherever you notice. It gets into where the tight spots are for you. And if you're going with this circle, see if you can soften a little more through the elbow. Let go of some of that stiffness through the arm. That's it. And so what we're going to do now is come into the twist and stay there. So whether you're getting into it with the arm doing that first move or the circular move, we're going to try to land our left shoulder as close to the floor as it can come. So, couple options here. In order to land more comfortably, one option is to bring your upper back, shoulders, walk them a little to the right in order to let that left shoulder come closer to the floor. So you've just sort of lifted and walked your shoulders and head slightly to the right, and maybe that's done enough. Or you can bring a pillow under your knees, okay? If you notice that there's a lot of tension today in your back, or if that left shoulder was still quite a ways off the floor, having a pillow or bolster, whatever you've got, under both knees will bring that left shoulder back closer to the ground. So this is a great option. The other, I think we'll stick with that for now. I'll show you the other option on the other side. So let's take a bit of time here. What you can do is reach across, if you like, with your right hand and rest the right hand on that left thigh if you can comfortably reach it. If not, just let the arm relax out. So if you can keep hold of that left thigh with your right hand, we can go ahead and just kind of massage a little bit with our fingertips into the side of our thigh. You can run your hand from sort of the outer thigh, outer hip, down the outer thigh towards the knee. So we can massage into the IT band, which is often quite tight and tender. So if this is new to you, you might notice some very tender spots, and that is perfectly normal. In the outer hip, we have a lot of different muscles that attach there, and it's a fairly bony space of our body, right? It's close to the surface. So it's going to be tender. A lot of muscle attachments around our hip joint. And then the side of the thigh, we've got that IT band, as I mentioned, but also just some of the quadricep front thigh muscles. You'll notice feel a little tight and tender as well. So feel free to massage through them. As we're here, can you sense your breath again into the left side of your body? Each inhale, rising and expanding. Each exhale, softening and settling. All right, so to come out of this position, you might bring your head back to center and either roll over onto your right side again and then onto your back, or you can simply return your knees to center and roll onto your back from there. So whatever way makes the most sense for you. And usually coming out of that position, you feel kind of stiff, right? You notice, a little bit of tight spot. So just take a bit of time and come back into the center and just notice how each side of your body feels after that. Okay. And then when you're ready, we're going to take it over to the other side. So rolling over onto your left side. You can have that pillow again under the head if you like. Getting as comfortable as you can here. And then let's start by lifting our right arm up. As we keep our knees as stacked as we can, hips stacked, start to slowly turn your upper body to the right. So the arm is going to come just as close to the floor as it does. This is like the first one's just to check in. And then we can come back up with the arm and roll again onto that left side. So we can lift and slowly rotate to the right and then return back onto the left side. So we're turning our upper body to the left, to the right. And then back over onto our side. So noticing how it feels on this side to turn in this direction. Maybe it feels stiffer, maybe it feels easier. And if you like, you can go for that circular movement through the right arm, back, sweeping out to the side as the upper body follows. Continue the circle down to the hip to roll again onto your side. So make sure that you're letting the movement come not only through your shoulder. So I'm going to show you what that would look like. This is me moving really just through my arm and shoulder. Not much at all through my upper back. So we're trying to find the movement through our upper back. Our spine turns, chest faces more the ceiling as the arm comes out to the right. And the head is attached to the rest of our spine. So as our spine moves, the head should follow. That's it. All right. And then when you feel ready to land into your twist on this side, let's go into it. So notice that your right shoulder might still be quite a ways from the floor. So what can you do? Walk your left shoulder over to the left. So both shoulders are going to follow. So upper back, walk it a little more to the left. And that might bring that right shoulder a bit closer to the floor. If not, you can bring your pillow again under your knees, okay? Under your bottom thigh. Or the other option that I didn't show you last time, and this one's just a little tricky when you're by yourself, is to have something like a pillow under that shoulder or under the right arm to rest into, okay? So the idea is to feel as supported as you can across your upper back. So the easiest way to do that is to bring a bit of a pillow under your bottom thigh. That will reduce the twist and the pull in your back as well. And your upper back and shoulders can relax closer to the floor. So let's pause and sense the breath here into this right side. We have a little more space and length right now through our right side, really from that shoulder through the ribs and waist down to the hip. And we can reach across with our left hand and go massaging into this hip. How does this side feel? If you can't quite reach the hip, you can just take your hand along the outer thigh where you're maybe more easily can reach, and massage and kind of knead with your fingertips into any tight spots there. So let's find and feel a couple more breaths, trying to relax and rest the weight of the head in the opposite direction of the knees. And that will also help land more weight down through that right shoulder. Wonderful. And then slowly let's return the head back to center. And either roll all the way onto your left side and then onto your back, or simply knees back to center, resting on your back. So coming back onto the back in whatever way makes sense to you. You may not need the pillow anymore. It's up to you. And let's take a moment here, get a sense of how the back meets the ground here at the end of your practice, having loosened up through the hips, through the lower back. And we can just take a bit of time to get as comfortable as you can. So maybe you're keeping your knees bent, feet flat on the floor, feeling free to keep a little bit of a thin pillow under the head if that feels better in the neck. Hands could rest on your body for a little extra feedback to feel your breath here. Closing your eyes once again and just noticing. How do you feel? Feeling the sensations that come and go as you allow the breath to do the same. Breathing in and breathing out. Feeling how the breath moves you easily and effortlessly without any sense of strain or force. Can you be present with each inhale and present with each exhale? And then let's slowly start to reawaken the body so you can let the eyes open when you're ready for that. Moving maybe into the fingers and the toes, like curling and spreading them a few times. And with your feet on the floor, you could just rock a bit up onto your toes and back to your heels, as you at the same time maybe try to circle into your wrists. Good. And then take your time to roll over onto whichever side you like. You can use the pillow under your head, or you can use your bottom arm as a pillow for under your head. Take a couple breaths here. We've been on the back for a good while, so just ease into the rest of your day here. Taking your time when you feel ready to use your hands or your forearms to press yourself up. And, just come into any comfortable seated position. It doesn't have to be cross-legged. Yeah, and just take a moment here, finding and feeling your spine as you sit, noticing how you feel through your hips, your low back after that. And I hope you enjoyed the practice and continue, and you'll feel better. Thanks so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. Namaste.